Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. A very warm welcome to Sunday's edition of the DCU Daily. You can follow me on X Twitter at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. Could the DCU be over before it begins? Well, a very interesting report has come out. Take a listen to this. The end of the DCU, Zaslav is reportedly not entirely happy with the final outcome of Superman and has already warned Gunn that if Superman is not profitable at the box office, he could cancel several projects or even end the DCU as a universe and only focus on individual projects. He's also said to be considering doing 180 and restoring the Snyderverse by producing Man of Steel 2 and Justice League 2. Right, let me give you some forewarning. Even if the DCU isn't successful, even if several projects are cancelled, if Superman isn't successful, it doesn't mean the Snyderverse will be restored. Now, I would love nothing more than the Snyderverse to be restored, and personally, Zack's already said what he'd like to do next at DC if he ever got the opportunity, which is to do a faithful adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns, and I think that's what he would do. He wouldn't necessarily finish his arc. I'm sure he would love to do that. But let's look at this report in bits and pieces, right? It's not hard for me to believe that David Zaslav isn't happy with the finished product of Superman after we saw that TV spot where Superman is flipping like a jet and his face looks fake and it's a terrible flying sequence. Zaslav must have seen that, even someone like Zaslav who doesn't have any experience in scripted entertainment, and thought to himself, oh my God, who have I put in charge of this universe, right? So that's not hard to believe that he's not happy with Superman. I can totally get that. But it's going to be released, and as I said from the very beginning, this film has to be successful or the DCU is done. And as I said yesterday, this is why it was so dumb to, announce a slate, to go into production of Lanterns and Supergirl, to announce all these projects when you don't even know how your first movie is going to do. We discussed Man of Steel and how there was no other projects during the production or announcement or release of Man of Steel. Well, let's talk about the first MCU movie, Iron Man. There wasn't a slate. Yes, it was Marvel Studios was a freshly, launched independent studio. This was prior to it being bought out by Disney, but they waited to see how Iron Man was going to do. No one does this. This is insane. So there's that. So he's warned Gunn, if it's not profitable, then he'll cancel several projects or even cancel the DCU in its entirety. But it's this part of the report that I want to talk about. And this is interesting. And only focus on individual projects. Only focus on individual projects. You mean just like what you should have done after you canned the DCEU. I said it from the very beginning. Singular visions. Let Gunn have his corner. Let Snyder have another corner. Let other directors, let Peter Jackson come in or whoever, right? He's just an example. But let directors come in and do their singular visions. Let James Mangold, do a Swamp Thing movie on his own, and this is what's crazy. This is what they should have done. This is what the MCU actually should have done after Endgame. Individual Marvel projects. People are done with these condensed, pre-packed franchises. It worked once with the MCU. They ruined it. It's done. People want to see real movies. It's interesting, yesterday on YouTube, I saw this video of these two girls reacting to Batman 89, and one of the girls made a very interesting point. She goes, it looks like a real movie. She goes, modern movies look so crisp and real. But this looks like, even though it's shot in the present day, it's supposed to be in the present day, it looks like a 50s movie. And because they shoot so much realism today in their movies, there's no escapism. And that's the problem. But that's something else. So, yeah, I mean, none of this surprises me. But if you want to know how dangerous it is putting Gunn in charge of a company like DC Studios, even though it's not a company, it's just the logo as far as I'm concerned, they released a marketing video between James Gunn, that involved James Gunn, David Corenswet, an unshaven David Corenswet. David, you should have had a shave unless you've got the stubble for another project, and former basketball player Shaquille O'Neal. Now, they're looking at the Superman costume and they're having this banter between each other. Now, this was a terrible video because the problem is now they've got James Gunn in charge of marketing. It's pretty obvious that he's in charge of marketing, but the problem is Gunn is marketing himself instead of more than marketing Superman. And this is the problem. And this is part of Gunn's ego. He has to be involved in everything because in his head, in his mind, he believes he's the most marketable commodity. And he's not. You are not as popular as you think you are, James. You shouldn't even be part of that video. But let me ask another question. Who is going to be interested in Superman because of Shaquille O'Neal? Shaquille O'Neal isn't even a relevant sports person anymore. The TikTok kids, the general audience, mostly don't even know who Shaquille O'Neal is. What made you decide to use Shaquille O'Neal as part of the marketing for Superman? You could have had an image of Superman at the Super Bowl instead of Nathan Fillion, your mate, aka Guy Gardner. You could have made a special 30-second romantic sequence between Superman and Lois, or Clark and Lois, or even released a little sneak peek of their banter together, right? But you didn't do that on Valentine's Day. You could have done that. That would have been great marketing. But no. Instead, you decided to do a little video between you, David Corenswet, and Shaquille O'Neal. This is crap marketing. It's not exciting. And in the video, we got a closer look at the terrible Superman costume. Now, in live action, in that teaser, it looks half decent. But at the end of the day, the costume isn't very good. Now, some people believe we'll get a better costume by the end of the movie, but it's still the costume we're seeing in trailers. It's still the costume they're putting up, in pictures. And it's interesting, right? The artwork, there's a lot of artwork going around, some official, some unofficial. The costume looks much better than it does in live action, but it's not the artwork we're going to see. We're going to see David in that costume. And as I said, in that teaser, he looks quite good in that costume. It doesn't look so bad, but when you look, when you see this video, when you see this marketing video between James Gunn, David Corenswet, and Shaquille O'Neal, and you get a closer look, and this is marketing, it doesn't look good. It's not a great advertisement for the film. It's not a great advertisement for the costume, because the costume, they take such a closer zoomed look using the camera that the costume looks even worse than it's ever done before. So there's a lot of problems here. So I absolutely believe that David Zaslav is concerned about this movie, and he will absolutely cancel projects or cancel the entire DCU if it's a flop. The problem is they're filming Supergirl. They're going to go into production of Lanterns. Those films have to happen, right? They have to be released. Imagine if Superman flops and then they have to release Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Look, that's based off of a comic. That might actually be a better film than Superman because Gunn isn't directing it. But Gunn will be giving them notes, and there lies the problem. Gunn is in total control of this situation. But I feel for DC in general and for other individual projects, it would be better if the DCU failed and if Superman failed. Now, I love Superman. I want this to be a great, treat, and I want this to be a great movie. It's not that I'm wishing that it fails, but for example, there's a little project that Alfred Gough, Miles Miller, Michael Rosenbaum, and Tom Welling. So Michael Rosenbaum, Tom Welling played Clark and Lex in Smallville. Gough and Miller created and ran Smallville for 7 seasons. They left in season 7, and then their underlings, their other writers, took over the show. Now they had this concept of an animated Smallville series. Projects like that will not happen under James Gunn. And people keep on saying, yeah, but Michael Rosenbaum's good friends with James Gunn. It doesn't matter. Gunn doesn't care. Did he, is Michael going to get, is he going to play a part in Superman? No, unless it's a surprise cameo. They're supposed to be good friends. Did he cast him as Lex because they're good friends? No, there's no one better. No one has been a better Lex Luthor than Michael Rosenbaum. Did he cast him? Did he give them that opportunity? No, because he did cast the kind of younger Lex Luthor. Of course, Michael is older than he once was. Personally, I wanted Vincent D'Onofrio to play Lex Luthor, who plays Kingpin in Daredevil. And this new Daredevil series will be very interesting because I don't have access to it because I don't have access to Disney Plus. But will that be another mess by Marvel Studios? But anyway, right, let's stay on point. Let's stay on the subject that we're talking about. And the reality here is, if Gunn wasn't in control, Superman and Lois wouldn't have been canned. It was supposed to go for 7 or 8 years, right? They had so many great plans like Darkseid, etc., 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 and Brainiac, right? That show was so unique and so different. It's outrageous that it was canned by Gunn. And we won't get the Smallville animated series. We won't get other individual movies. Now, it's sounding more positive for Constantine 2, but I think decisions like Constantine 2 are not in Gunn's hands. I think that's a Zaslav decision, and I think that's why that's going forward. But James Gunn is a writer-director. He's not a CEO. He is the co-CEO of DC Studios, but he has no experience in running companies. He has experience in writing and directing movies, which is what he should have stuck to. That's why I said on the top of the show why Gunn should have had his space at DC to do Suicide Squad, to do Creature Commandos, and if he wants to do a Sergeant Rock movie, he should write and direct that. But he shouldn't be in control of his whole universe. But the reality is, he's in control in what happens and doesn't happen at DC. It's up to him what DC television show happens. It's up to him what movies get greenlit. And that isn't a good thing, everyone. It isn't a good thing having one person in total control. This is a person who prefers certain characters. And we've discussed how he's also a one-trick pony. So this report is interesting to me, that it's becoming public that maybe Zaslav isn't happy with Superman. And as I say, that's not hard to believe after seeing that TV spot. And maybe that teaser was so good because they put the best stuff in it. Is there better stuff than we saw in that teaser to come? Don't forget, that was just a teaser. But it didn't seem like a teaser. The Fantastic Four teaser is how you do a teaser. It was just a teaser, and some people said it was underwhelming. Teasers are supposed to be underwhelming. They're supposed to make you wish you had more footage because they're just teasers. But Gunn and DC Studios and WB needed you to be hooked into the movie, so they threw everything at that teaser. But is there any more to come? Because as I say, don't forget, they've still got to do a main trailer. And it's interesting to me that there was no smiling, there was no gags in that teaser. They really were very, very careful with that teaser to try not to upset anyone. So this is a very, very interesting situation. And absolutely, if this film flops, if Superman flops, he won't just cancel Zaslav some projects. He will cancel the DCU. But as I say, Supergirl is being made. Would Zaslav be so bold to shelve Supergirl if Superman flops? Would he be so bold to shelve lanterns if Superman flops? Only time will tell.